There are 6 rubber feet at the bottom of the unit that need to be removed to access other system components. To remove the rubber feet, first disconnect the external battery holder and any other connectors from the unit. Press the Release tab and slide the unit off of the backpack accessory, if the unit is using the backpack accessory. Use a spudger or similar tool to pry each rubber foot out of the bottom screw wells on the bottom of the chassis. To replace the rubber feet, insert the adhesive side of each foot into each screw well on the bottom of the unit. To service any internal components, you will need to remove the top cover. To remove the top cover, first remove all 6 of the bottom rubber feet. Remove the 6 long Torx 8 screws on the bottom of the unit. Starting at the side of the unit, carefully pry the top cover off of the unit. Note, this can be difficult. Lay the top cover to the side of the unit without stressing the flat ribbon connector on the cover. Many system components can be serviced in this position. If you are fully removing the top cover from the unit, detach the flat ribbon top cover voodoo lighting cable from the top cover to fully remove the top cover from the unit. There are several tabs around the inner edge of the top cover that snap over an inner lip on the chassis. To replace the top cover if it has been fully removed, first insert the top cover voodoo lighting flat ribbon cable into its port on the top cover and secure with its latch. Press the top cover onto the unit until all tabs have snapped into place. Replace the 6 long Torx 8 screws to the bottom of the unit to secure the top cover to the unit. To remove the larger of the 2 fans in the unit, first remove the 6 bottom rubber feet and the top cover. Detach the memory fan's connector from the motherboard. Detach the 3 Phillips No. 1 screws that secure the fan in the unit. Pull the fan out of the unit. To replace the memory fan, align the fan back over its standoffs in the unit. Secure the fan with its 3 Phillips No. 1 screws. Reattach the fan connector to the motherboard. To remove the M.2 absorber and rear I/O bracket assembly, first remove the 6 bottom rubber feet, the top cover, and the large fan. Peel back the M.2 absorber from over the M.2 flash memory module. Detach the Phillips No. 1 screw for the unused rear antenna bracket and pull the bracket out of the unit. Detach the Phillips No. 1 screw for the auxiliary antenna bracket and pull the antenna and bracket assembly partially out of the unit. Detach the silver wide head Phillips number 1 screw and the black Phillips number 1 screw that secure the rear I/O bracket assembly to the unit. Pull out the rear I/O bracket with the attached M.2 absorber. If replacing the absorber, peel off the M.2 absorber from the bracket. If installing a new M.2 absorber, align the absorber over the bracket and press the adhesive into place on the bracket. One of the screw holes on the bracket aligns over a metal standoff inside the unit. Place the bracket assembly back into the unit, aligning the screw hole over its standoff. Secure the bracket in the unit with its silver flathead Phillips number 1 screw near the power button and the black Phillips number 1 screw on the motherboard. The auxiliary antenna bracket has a small hole that fits over an alignment pin on the unit. Place the auxiliary antenna bracket assembly onto the rear cover, aligning the hole over its pin. Secure the auxiliary antenna bracket to the unit with its Phillips number 1 screw near the alignment pin. The unused antenna bracket also has a small hole that fits over an alignment pin inside the unit. Place the unused rear antenna bracket onto the rear cover and secure with its Phillips number 1 screw near the alignment pin. Press the M.2 absorber back over the M.2 flash memory module. To remove the smaller of the two fans in the unit, first remove the bottom feet and the top cover. You may want to disconnect the nearby DC in cable from the motherboard for better access to the fan connector. Detach the graphics fan's connector from the motherboard. Detach the 3 Phillips number 1 screws that secure the fan in the unit. Pull the connector out from under other system connectors. Pull the fan out of the unit. There is a small hole on the small fan that aligns over a small alignment pin on the internal battery. To replace the small fan, align the fan back over its standoffs in the unit and the hole over its pin. Feed the fan connector back under other system connectors. Secure the fan with its 3 Phillips number 1 screws. Reattach the fan connector to the motherboard. Replace the DC in cable to the motherboard if it was removed for access to the fan connector. To remove the thermal module, first remove the 6 bottom rubber feet, the top cover, the small fan, and the large fan. Loosen the 8 captured Phillips number 1 screws for the thermal module in the order indicated by the stencils on the assembly. Carefully pull the thermal module out of the unit. Before replacing the thermal module, first clean off the thermal grease from the CPU. Clean off the grease from the GPU. Clean off the grease from the thermal module if replacing the same thermal module into the unit. Apply new thermal grease or thermal pads to the CPU and GPU. Make sure the thermal module pads are correctly positioned on the thermal module before installation. Carefully align the thermal module back into the unit, positioning it carefully above the CPU and GPU. Tighten the 8 Phillips No. 1 screws for the thermal module over the CPU and GPU in the order indicated by the stencils on the module. To remove the main wireless LAN antenna, first remove the 6 bottom rubber feet and the top cover. Detach the black Phillips No. 1 screw and the silver wide head Phillips No. 1 screw that secure the main antenna bracket inside the unit. Partially pull away the main antenna assembly. Carefully pry off the antenna from the wireless LAN board to fully remove the main wireless antenna assembly from the unit. If you are replacing the antenna, remove the foam gasket from the top of the antenna. Pry the antenna and its foil tape off of its bracket. To install a new main wireless antenna, press the antenna adhesive and foil tape down onto the main antenna bracket. Place the foam gasket for the main antenna over the foil tape. There is a small hole on the main wireless antenna bracket that fits over an alignment pin on the chassis. To replace the main wireless antenna assembly, first carefully reattach the antenna cable to the wireless LAN board. Align the hole on the bracket over its alignment pin. Secure the main wireless antenna bracket to the unit with the black Phillips No. 1 system screw and the silver wide head Phillips No. 1 screw. To remove the wireless LAN board, first remove the 6 bottom rubber feet, the top cover, and the main wireless LAN antenna bracket assembly. Carefully snap off the remaining antenna connector from the board. Detach the Phillips No. 0 screw, securing the board in place. The board will pop up. Pull the board out of its motherboard socket. The wireless LAN board has a notch offset from the center that aligns over a key in its motherboard socket. To replace the wireless LAN board, angle the board into its motherboard socket at a 30-degree angle, engaging the notch on the board over its socket key. Press the board down. Hold it down while replacing the screw. Carefully press the auxiliary antenna connector back onto the board. Replace the main antenna connector and the main antenna bracket assembly. To remove the large internal battery, first remove the 6 bottom rubber feet, the top cover, the small fan, and the main wireless LAN antenna bracket assembly. Detach the 2 external battery connectors from the motherboard and remove the connector from the cable guides on the top of the battery. Detach the DC-in power cable from the motherboard and pull it out of the cable guides on the top of the battery. Remove the 5 Phillips No. 1 screws that secure the battery to the unit. Note, the screws are longer than other system screws. Remove the small metal bracket at the front of the battery. Pull the battery straight up and out of the unit. The battery has several slots on the bottom rear edge that slide over pins on its motherboard header. To replace the internal battery, align the battery over the motherboard and press the slots straight down over the pins. There are 2 small holes on the small metal front bracket for the battery that fit over alignment pins on the battery. To replace the bracket, align the holes over their pins. Secure the battery and the bracket to the unit with the 5 Phillips No. 1 screws. Align the DC-in cable back into its cable guides on the battery and reconnect the cable to the motherboard. Align the external battery connectors into the cable guides on the battery and reconnect them to the motherboard. To remove an M.2 flash memory module if installed in the unit, first remove the 6 bottom rubber feet, the top cover, and the larger of the 2 fans. Peel back the Mylar M.2 absorber covering the M.2 socket area on the motherboard. Detach the Phillips No. 1 screw securing the M.2 flash memory in place. The module will pop up. Pull the M.2 module out of its motherboard socket. The M.2 flash memory module has a notch on its edge that aligns over a key in its motherboard socket. To replace the M.2 flash memory module, angle the module into its motherboard socket at a 30-degree angle, engaging the notch over its socket key, and press the module down. Hold it down while replacing the Phillips No. 1 screw. Press the Mylar covering back over the M.2 flash memory module. To remove system memory, first remove the 6 bottom rubber feet, the top cover, and the larger of the 2 fans. Press on the side of the memory shielding to disengage it, and pull the memory shielding out of the unit. To remove the SO-DIMM memory module, gently pull out on the retaining lever located on each side of the module. The module will pop up from its socket. Pull the memory module out of the socket. There is a small notch on one side of each SO-DIMM memory module that fits over a small tab on one side of each SO-DIMM socket. To replace an SO-DIMM memory module, angle the module to about 30 degrees in its socket, engaging the notch into its socket tab. Press the module down into place until the retaining levers snap into position over the sides of the module. There are small raised clips on the motherboard around the memory area that the edges of the memory shielding fit into. To replace the memory shielding, align one edge of the shielding into its guides and gently squeeze and press the rest of the shielding into place. CMOS factory settings should be restored as a first step before replacing the system motherboard. To restore CMOS factory settings, first remove the 6 bottom rubber feet, the top cover, the small fan, the large fan, and the thermal module. Disconnect the motherboard battery connector. Wait 30 seconds. Reconnect the battery to the motherboard. CMOS factory settings are now reset. Note that you will now need to enter System BIOS and reset the clock in BIOS after this procedure. To remove the motherboard, first remove the 6 bottom rubber feet, the top cover, the large fan, the M.2 absorber and rear I/O bracket assembly, the small fan, the thermal module, the main antenna bracket assembly, the wireless LAN board, the internal battery, the M.2 flash memory module, the memory shielding, and system memory modules. Detach the power button connector, the DC out cable, and the top Voodoo lighting flat ribbon connector from the motherboard. Detach the 2 Phillips No. 1 screws for the motherboard on the top side of the motherboard. Remove the 3 standoffs that also secure the motherboard to the rear cover with a hex sleeve. Carefully tip the motherboard edge up and remove it from the rear cover. Place the motherboard in an anti-static bag. To replace the motherboard, first tip the back connector ports into their cutouts on the rear cover of the PC. Press the motherboard down, being extra careful not to trap connectors under the edges of the motherboard. Secure the motherboard to the rear cover with its 3 hex standoffs and the 2 Phillips No. 1 system screws. Replace the top Voodoo lighting flat ribbon connector to the motherboard. Replace the power button board and DC out connectors to the motherboard. To remove the auxiliary rear wireless LAN antenna, first remove the 6 bottom rubber feet, the top cover, the large fan, the M.2 absorber and rear I/O bracket assembly, the small fan, the thermal module, the main antenna bracket assembly, the wireless LAN board, the internal battery, the M.2 flash memory module, the memory shielding, and the memory modules. Remove the motherboard from the rear cover. Carefully bend back the copper foil from the rear cover until the auxiliary antenna cable is fully visible. Remove the antenna cable from its cable guides along the rear cover. Remove the tape securing it to the rear cover, and remove the antenna bracket assembly from the unit. Peel off the foil tape securing the antenna to its bracket, and pry the antenna from the bracket. To install a new auxiliary wireless antenna, press the antenna adhesive and foil tape down onto the auxiliary antenna bracket. Align the auxiliary antenna bracket assembly into its place on the rear cover for positioning it. Then tape the antenna down to the rear cover near the bracket. Secure the antenna cable in its cable guides along the rear cover. Press the rear cover copper foil back down into place as flat as possible. To remove the DC out cable, first remove the 6 bottom rubber feet, the top cover, the large fan, the M.2 absorber and rear I/O bracket assembly, the small fan, the thermal module, the main antenna bracket assembly, the wireless LAN board, the internal battery, the M.2 flash memory module, the memory shielding, and system memory modules. Remove the motherboard from the unit. Detach the 2 Phillips No. 1 screws that secure the DC out cable bracket to the rear cover. Remove the bracket. Pull the DC out cable off of the rear cover. To replace the DC out cable, align the cable back onto the rear cover. Place the bracket over the cable. Secure the bracket and cable with the 2 Phillips No. 1 screws. To remove the external battery cable, first remove the 6 bottom rubber feet, the top cover, the large fan, the M.2 absorber and rear I/O bracket assembly, the small fan, the thermal module, the main antenna bracket assembly, the wireless LAN board, the internal battery, the M.2 flash memory module, the memory shielding, and system memory modules. Remove the motherboard from the unit. Detach the 4 Phillips No. 1 screws that secure the external battery cable to the rear cover. Pull the external battery cable off of the rear cover. To replace the external battery cable, align the 2 ports of the cable back onto the rear cover. Secure the cable with the 4 Phillips No. 1 screws. To remove the DC in cable, first remove the 6 bottom rubber feet, the top cover, the large fan, the M.2 absorber and rear I/O bracket assembly, the small fan, the thermal module, the main antenna bracket assembly, the wireless LAN board, the internal battery, the M.2 flash memory module, the memory shielding, and system memory modules. Remove the motherboard from the unit. Detach the Phillips No. 1 screw that secures the DC in cable bracket to the rear cover. Remove the bracket. Pull the DC in cable off of the rear cover. To replace the DC in cable, align the cable back onto the rear cover. Place the bracket over the cable. Secure the bracket and cable with the Phillips No. 1 screw. To remove the rear cover, first remove the 6 bottom rubber feet, the top cover, the large fan, the M.2 absorber and rear I/O bracket assembly, the small fan, the thermal module, the main antenna bracket assembly, the wireless LAN board, the internal battery, the M.2 flash memory module, the memory shielding, and system memory modules. Remove the motherboard from the unit. Remove the auxiliary antenna bracket assembly, the DC out cable, the external battery cable, and the DC in cable from the rear cover. Pull the copper thermal foil off of the rear cover and reserve. Remove the 4 silver wide head Phillips No. 1 screws and the 2 black Phillips No. 1 screws that secure the bracket for the docking ports to the rear cover. Push the docking ports out the back of the cover and reserve. Pull the docking port bracket off of the rear cover and reserve. To install a new rear cover, place the docking port bracket back onto the rear cover. Slide the docking ports back into the unit through the outside of the cover. Secure the ports and bracket in the unit with the 2 black Phillips No. 1 screws and the 4 silver Phillips No. 1 screws. Align the copper thermal foil piece back onto the rear cover and press into place.